Good afternoon to you. 406 now, News Talk 105.9 WMAL, where we're making sense of the news. Coming up, Cheryl Chumley will join us from the Washington Times. We talked to her about Biden's disastrous handling of yet another war, this one between Israel and Hamas. And then Charisse Trump joins us at 5:30 from Speech First to react to a major university system purging DEI and saying, we're going to give more funding to the cops. It's ahead on the Vince Coglianese Show. You can join us at 888-630-9625, 888-630-WMAL. Election interference continuing at the hands of the left today. Donald Trump, the president, former president, perhaps future president, still held up in that trial, the Alvin Bragg production. And Michael Cohen is testifying today, a man who's been routinely found guilty of lying in all sorts of places. Here to discuss that election interference is Ned Ryun. He's the founder and CEO of American Majority and joins us on the phone. Hello, Ned.
Hey, how you doing, Ben?
I'm doing okay, and it seems like President Trump has really benefited from the American people having their eyes open during this proceeding. But, man, it's a shame it's come to this, isn't it?
It really is. I mean, massive abuse of our legal system being used as a political weapon to try and take out Biden's chief political opponent. I mean, this is late-stage Republic behavior. And when you weaponize the legal system and turn it into a political weapon, that's a real problem. I mean, it's going to take years to unwind this, to set things right. But it's kind of glorious, Vance, to watch one of the main pillars of the Biden reelection campaign collapsing in front of our eyes. And by that, I mean this lawfare, which they were absolutely coordinating in hopes of at least tying up Trump, if not completely damaging him, for November 5th. And to watch it collapse in real time is glorious. Of course, that's always been one of my theories. A lot of people thought this was going to get Trump. They're going to finally bring him down somehow. And I've always looked at the opposite side of the coin of how glorious will it be when it does collapse. I think you'll see him surge in the polls when the normies, and I think a lot of normies, those people that really don't follow politics day in and day out, have their eyes open and truly realize, yeah, this is all about politics. It has nothing to do with Donald Trump in any way, breaking the law. This is them attempting to take him out.
There's a bunch of areas where the Republic seems to still have like some checks and balances that are popping up. You've got the Supreme Court saying, hey, we've got to take a look at the extent of presidential immunity here. So they're considering that right now. In that case, Jack Smith's efforts are being delayed. Additionally, Eileen Cannon down in Florida has indefinitely postponed the start of the document dispute trial, saying, wait a second, we have a lot of pretrial motions to consider here. There's a lot of weight to these very novel issues that need to be carefully considered ahead of the trial. And in New York, it seems like everybody's watching this thing and going, this is a disaster for the prosecution.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, Stormy Daniels, the last two witnesses, Stormy Daniels, Michael Cohen, have made it very clear that they hate, loathe, and despise Donald Trump, which I would say, if they were even being honest, which both of them are known liars, but even if they were being honest, the fact that they have expressed such hatred for Donald Trump should cause anything they say in the courtroom to be disregarded. Obviously, I think the hope was that they'll get Donald Trump in front of a stacked New York jury. But I think even then, I have a hard time believing that this is going to be as damaging to Trump as they had hoped, because I really do think, if you're hanging all of your hopes on Michael Cohen, as you mentioned, he's lied to Congress. He's lied to the IRS. A judge just recently called him a serial perjurer. These are some of the things. If that's your best bet to try and take out Donald Trump, wow, this is a bigger joke than I thought it was.
And he's being described as the star witness by all of the news outlets that are covering him,
exactly.
Which really goes to the point that you're making. So we'll see. Although, just as by way of news here, we're seeing that the prosecution's claiming that they're going to go into a second day of questioning of Michael Cohen. And so one would assume that the defense maybe sometime tomorrow would begin a chance of cross-examination. That's when Cohen's time in the spotlight is going to come crashing down, I think.
I think so. The Stormy Daniels, first of all, which had nothing to do with the actual supposed merits, of which there are none to the case, the cross-examination on Stormy Daniels absolutely eviscerated her. I assume that's going to happen the same with Cohen.
Yeah.
That as soon as he hits cross-examination, I think this is all going to go kaboom. It will be egg on their face, and I couldn't be laughing harder and enjoying it more.
Do you think that the left realizes that the main point of this case is to allege that the 2016 election was stolen? That this is an election rigging allegation?
They're trying to somehow. Which, by the way, correct me if I'm wrong, Vance, the payment and all the stuff that they're claiming took place after the election was done.
Well, that's exactly right. In fact, Michael Cohen testified.
Nothing to do with it.
Michael Cohen testified today that Trump actually told him, "Don't pay her before the election because maybe we won't have to pay her at all."
Yeah, now they're trying. You know what they're doing, Vince? They're saying basically they're using woke math that somehow a potential, and I mean that a potential misdemeanor plus another potential misdemeanor has somewhat equaled a felony. I mean, the stretch of them trying to connect those two dots to then turn it into a felony. I mean, obviously, Jonathan Turley, Dershowitz, a lot of these really fine constitutional lawyers have said it's literally a Frankenstein case that they have zapped back to life.
Yeah.
That is a walking zombie that has no real legal merit at all. It's an attempt to take out Trump, and it's failing miserably.
Let me talk about, if the voters get their way, I want to figure out, what they want to say. The New York Times has a big survey today finding that Trump is up in most, if not all, of the swing states. If you look at likely and registered voters, Trump's doing very, very well, and that's been the case now for months. He's bringing in a bunch of the kind of non-traditional Republican voters, young people and non-white voters who are very supportive of him. What do you make of the electoral math here as Trump heads towards Election Day?
I mean, we know it's going to come down to 7 states. It's going to be Arizona, Nevada, Wisconsin, Pennsylvania, Georgia, North Carolina, throw in Michigan. And, I love a good poll, Vince. I really do. And I look at this as like a weather forecast. Great. It looks like the weather's going to be good. Mm-hmm. But the numbers that I care about, especially in those 7 states, are what is the size of the Republican ballot universe? And what is the disparity among partisan registration? For example, in Arizona, just to put a fine point on this, we've been doing some absentee ballot generation among mid to low propensity Republican voters. The advantage now on the permanent Republican list over Democrats is about 54,000 ballots. That's great. Another close friend, Chris Buskirk's been doing some phenomenal voter registration in Arizona. Now the partisan registration is 236,000 to Republicans' advantage. Those are the numbers I care about, Vince, because when it comes down to brass tacks, it's going to be who has the bigger ballot universe, who has the bigger registration advantage, and who can chase in the most ballots to win on November 5th. So I love polls. I think these are very positive signs because Trump never led in 2016 and 2020 like he's leading in 2024. But I'm running like we're behind, and I'm focused on those numbers of the absentee ballots and voter registration.
That's key. Well, let me give you some other math to help support what you're saying. In this New York Times survey today, in Michigan, Biden leads by 1 among likely voters. But let me pull the lens out now. Among registered voters, Trump leads by 7. So that tells the story you just told, which is you've got people who are sitting on the sidelines who support Trump. They're not sure they're going to cast their ballot. They're registered voters. They're not in the likely voter category. The task for Republicans and the Trump campaign specifically, turn those guys into likely voters.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, this kind of ties into a Marquette poll from the first week of April. Same thing. Among likely voters, Biden was narrowing the lead with likely. When it came to registered unsure, Trump was up 12. And that really, to me, just validated what we're working on is you've got to get these mid to low prop registered Republicans, get them to request a ballot. That's half the battle. Get them to have a ballot in their hands. And then, North Carolina voting starts, the ballots drop 60 days out. Mm-hmm. Arizona, they drop 30 days out. And so I'd rather have 60 to 30 days instead of 12 hours to be able to chase those mid to low propensity ballots in. And so you're right. It's a matter of going after these registered unsure. They'll vote and say, we need you to request a ballot. And the minute they request a ballot, we have turned them into pretty much likely voters. And we just have to, through a series of targeted harassments, get them to return that before November 5th.
Yeah. Yeah, it's just good salesmanship. That's how you do it. So another piece here. You mentioned that among I keep looking at surveys. In fact, I had a conversation with you recently about this. You keep looking at surveys, and what you're finding out is that among Americans who are not yet registered to vote, they're wildly supportive of Trump. Wildly, so much so that Democrats have begun talking amongst themselves about stopping voter registration efforts nationwide. They don't want to register new people to vote for fear that they're only going to get Trump elected. What should Republicans do with this?
exactly what some people like Chris Buskirk has been doing of registering voters in Arizona and Nevada and Wisconsin and North Carolina and Pennsylvania, and Georgia. I mean, these are one of the things, like you were saying, in that Marquette poll I just referenced, among voting age unregistered, Trump was winning by almost 30 points. And it's one of those things, again, those 2 points of registered but unsure, of voting age not registered, it tells me two things. Go get people to request absentee ballots if they're registered. And if they're not registered, you know if you get them registered, the likelihood of them voting for Trump is by factor of 30%, 30 points, they're going to vote for Trump. And so registration deadlines typically go until about a month before, so about first week of October. People should be registering voters in these states, in these battleground states that they think lean conservative, get them registered to vote. And absentee ballot deadlines sometimes go up until maybe a week to 10 days before the election. So it's one of those things. We know exactly what we're supposed to do. I've called it, Vince, an arms race. This is what I've been trying to communicate to people. We are in an arms race in those 7 different states.
Yeah.
Are you going to generate more ballots? Are you going to generate more voters? That is exactly what we should be doing for the next, call it, 5.5 months.
Okay, so assess, if you could, give kind of a report card on how you think Republicans are doing. You mentioned, obviously, the efforts of people like Chris Buskirk. These are patriots who want to register people to vote, get them out there. What do you think in terms of just the Republican Party, the RNC? They have a new change in leadership. Are you happy with the direction things are heading?
I am. I know some of these people pretty well. James Blair, new political director. They've unified political director at the campaign and the RNC. James Blair is that person. They get it. They fully understand and embrace absentee ballot generation, absentee ballot chase. I think that they are headed in the right direction. I would give them a very solid B grade right now, and I think it's only going to get better. I would not be surprised if we're at a B plus, A minus come fall. They realize this needs to be a focus. They are trying to generate funding to make sure these things are done at the right levels. So, it's going to be a matter, Vince, of time and money. And I know that they're doing it, and I know they're trying to do it. And the question is, will they have enough time? Will they have enough money? But they are moving in the right direction.
Okay. And finally, do you think the Democrats cooked up the P. Diddy scandal because he was, getting too good at voter registration?
Who knows? I mean, let's just say this. I mean, given the track record of the DOJ and the FBI over the last 6 to 8 years in cooking up stuff to target political opponents, I wouldn't put it past them.
Yeah, maybe that's it. Maybe Diddy was set up.
They've got a track record.
It was vote or die before, and now they're taking him out. Hey, thank you very much. Ned Ryun, thank you for being a great American, for talking to us today. Really appreciate it.
Absolutely. Great talking with you, man.
Good to chat with you. That's Ned Ryun, who follows it. That's a good grade from Ned. He said he'll give them a solid B right now. Boy, I don't know if there's any other issue that we've been more singularly focused on than election integrity and this ballot stuff in terms of chasing down the answers to this. Prior to the change in regime over at the RNC, we were given quite a few squirrely answers about just how up to speed everybody is on election integrity, and that wasn't good enough. So we keep drilling down with these guys, and we'll bring you every answer we possibly can. But it is fascinating to watch as the Democrats are now running away from voter registration. Oh no, don't register to vote. It's not even worth it. It doesn't do anything. It's useless. Amazing, just amazing. They're much more interested in voter suppression than they are in letting people have their voices heard, especially if those voices say, "I'd prefer Trump." It's 420 now. Okay, as always, keeping an eye on whether or not President Trump steps up to a microphone outside of that courthouse in Manhattan. You know that the Bob Menendez Gold Bar Bob trial is happening basically next door to Trump right now? They're both in Manhattan at the same time. One man being charged for a crime he actually committed. That's Menendez. Money in his pockets. It's all so crazy. Meanwhile, Trump having to deal with this unconstitutional horse crap. He'll step up to a microphone, we presume, at some point. And if he does, we'll bring it to you. But in the meantime, all some interesting people coming out saying that this is garbage. This is totally garbage. Here's Fareed Zakaria over the weekend.
Meanwhile, Republicans seem to be uniting behind Trump. Whatever opposition he faced in the primaries has largely melted away. And the trials against him keep him in the spotlight, infuriate his base, who sees him as a martyr, and even
his base is growing, by the way.
They serve to make him the object of some sympathy among people in general who believe that his prosecutors are politically motivated. This happens to be true, in my opinion. I doubt the New York indictment would have been brought against a defendant whose name was not Donald Trump. A majority of Americans are skeptical that Trump will be able to get a fair trial, according to a CNN poll. And I haven't even mentioned Robert F. Kennedy Jr. and Cornel West and Jill Stein, all of whom would probably take votes away from Biden.
In other words, it's looking bad for Joe Biden. Bill Maher says they're running out of tricks to throw at Trump.
I mean, the Democrats have had 4 years to put Trump on trial, and it is all just going away. They blew it at every term. Here's what's happened this week. Georgia, that one, okay. They're going to take up Trump's argument about Fannie Willis. Now, she's the prosecutor. She's having an affair.
He says Fannie. He's one of us.
With the guy she hired. I mean, it's not really relevant to the case, but they left an opening. And now that one's going to be delayed. The stolen documents one, that's never going to happen because that's a Trumpy judge down there. So it's Stormy or bust.
He's so bitter about it.
I saw what you did there.
Who's the guy who said, I saw what you did there? It's Stormy or bust? Oh, is it a joke about her being a woman? Is that who performed in pornographic films? Okay, I guess. I saw what you did there. I can see that.
Let me show you a little video. This is when I had Stormy on in 2018, and first I asked her why she had sex with Trump. Listen to that, and then listen to what she says after that, and then we're going to talk about the trial, because it's quite at variance of what she said to me in 2018. Why did you Donald Trump?
I have no idea.
Classic.
Okay, but you say it's not a Me Too case.
It is not a Me Too case. I mean, I wasn't assaulted. I wasn't attacked or raped or coerced or blackmailed. They tried to shove me in the Me Too box to further their own agenda. And first of all, I didn't want any part of that because it's not the truth, and I'm not a victim in that regard.
That's not what she's saying now.
That's not what she's saying now. Huh. I wonder if the judge will allow evidence like that to be admitted. Probably not, because it's rigged. Because it's rigged. All right. Hold on. There's a major university system that's decided to defund DEI. They said, you know, this whole racial prejudice thing, we probably should stop paying for it. What are we going to do with the money? They have a great idea. It's ahead. Good afternoon to you. 4:35 now, News Talk 105.9 WMAL, where we're making sense of the news. Coming up, we'll be joined by the great Cheryl Chumley from the Washington Times. We talked to her about Biden's efforts to abandon Israel just as they are about to wipe out Hamas. And then Sharice Trump joins us at 5:30 as a major university system says, we've had it with DEI. It's destroying everything it touches. You can join us at 888-630-9625, 888-630-WMAL. Well, as expected, President Trump stepping up to a microphone, just beginning his remarks moments ago. We'll take you to them. Here we go.
Because they chose to show up, they view this as a scam. I think it's a terrible thing that's happening to democracy in this country, and we have a lot of them that want to come. I say just stay back and pass lots of laws to stop things like this. J.D. Vance, what's going on in that courtroom is a threat to democracy, and we cannot have a country where we get to prosecute your political opponent instead of persuading voters. A.G. Byrd, as you know, very highly respected from Iowa. Let the American people decide who the next leader of the free world will be. Politics is absolutely no place in this courtroom. This is all politics. Andy McCarthy, great legal analyst, said none of this is illegal. There's nothing illegal. It's called politics. There's nothing illegal. A lot of people say that. They're all saying that. The only person who won't say it is the judge, because it's a rigged deal. He's conflicted. You got to check that out. But everybody's saying there's no crime. Leo Terrell, up until right now, there's not a single shred of evidence that President Trump participated in a crime of either falsifying records or hiding a campaign or state or federal finance charge. None of it. There's been absolutely nothing. Look, they're doing great. You know why they're doing great? They've kept me here for 3.5, 4 weeks instead of campaigning. and yet we still have the best poll numbers. Just came out in the New York Times, as we discussed before. Mark Levin, let me put this as succinctly as possible. There's no crime, state or federal, with which to link Donald Trump or anyone else. This is a case looking for a legal basis. There is none. There is no crime. It's Mark Levin. Again, J.D. Vance, to the American voters who are watching this, the one opportunity you get to speak up against this sham prosecution and to say the American people should elect a president, not use corrupt DNC prosecutors to help them get elected, which is exactly what they're doing. Andy McCarthy, again, Bragg has no authority to enforce federal law. The NDA payments were not campaign expenditures under federal law. That's why the FEC and DOJ, which do have exclusive authority to enforce federal law, took absolutely no action against Trump. They took no action against me. They looked at it, they said it's fine. The only one that did is Soros-backed DA Bragg, who turned down the case. By the way, he turned down the case, and it could have been brought 6 years ago, 7 years ago, almost 8 years ago. They bring it right in the middle of my presidential campaign. Bragg. He said we had no case. You know, if you go back, take a look at your earlier records. When he came into office, he turned it down and he was angry because of what took place. When he saw that they were going to use this scam, he was angry. Even Michael Smirkanish of CNN, a person 4 or 5 weeks into a trial ought to be told exactly that which they're being prosecuted for. And that hasn't happened. You know why it happened? Because it didn't happen for one very simple reason, because there is no crime. Here's Mark Thiessen. I don't think things are going very well for the prosecution in the court of law. And in the court of public opinion, they're doing even worse. Matt Whitaker, another day at trial, and they're keeping the president off the campaign trail. Byron York on the hush money trial, which is not hush money. Majority of voters in Georgia, Pennsylvania, Michigan say Trump cannot get a fair trial. That's too bad. That's really too bad. Andy McCarthy, again, Bragg knows exactly what he's doing. It's improper, completely political case. Maybe Mershon, Judge Mershon, is having second thoughts. They haven't come to close to proving, they have not come close to proving fraud or that any fraud has taken place. There's no fraud here. There's no crime here. This is 4 weeks of keeping me from not campaigning. Jonathan Turley, can't imagine any competent lawyer would not be embarrassed by what has happened in this courtroom. This day is truly going to go down as a day of infamy for the New York legal system, which is true. The whole world is laughing now at the New York weaponized legal system. Watching this unfold in that courtroom as a lawyer is really deeply disturbing. They keep on referring to these documents. The documents don't move the ball. The documents show that the NDA and a payment that is not in dispute. This is Jonathan Turley. They're not unlawful, and as a federal campaign contribution, there is absolutely no problem. There's no problem here. You know, the FEC wrote this off. FEC, the Elections Commission, Federal Elections Commission, they looked at this years ago, and they took a pass. They said there's no problem here. Tim Scott, objective is to keep Trump off the campaign trail. That's all they're trying to do, keep him off the campaign trail. Here's the New York Times that just came out a little while ago, where we're leading in every state, in the 5 key states, we're leading very substantially, I might add. So it's really a very sad day for the country. It's sad for New York. I mean, New York, that a judge who's highly conflicted at a level that nobody's seen before can possibly, just think of it, and you should go out and check it out. But we have a corrupt judge, and we have a judge who's highly conflicted, and he's keeping me from campaigning. He's an appointed New York judge. He's appointed. You know who appointed him? Democrat politicians. He's appointed. He's a corrupt judge, and he's a conflicted judge, and he ought to let us go out and campaign in and get rid of this scam. Every single legal analyst, even CNN, even MSDNC, they're saying there's no case here. Thank you very much.
When's the next time you'll be on the campaign trail instead of mingling with wealthy donors?
What do you mean it's conflicted?
What do you mean? what rock do you live under? What do you mean he's good? Oh, that's just funny how corrupt they are. All right, there's President Trump walking away from his twice daily statements to the press, both before and after court each day, with the exception of Wednesdays when they don't have court proceedings there with Judge Merchan. He is, he's upset about what's happening to him. He reiterated a lot of the common themes. He says this whole thing is rigged. He said the judge is conflicted. Say what you will about Donald Trump, but man, that guy goes hard in the paint every time. How many defendants will step up to a microphone in the middle of court proceedings and say the judge is totally corrupt? Usually attorneys are going, hey, no, don't say no. Just leave this to us. We've got this. Not in Trump's case. Trump has turned this into a big success story, at New York State taxpayer expense. New York taxpayers are giving a gigantic in-kind contribution to the Trump campaign. Trump is not spending any campaign money on this. This is all New York State taxpayers who have to pay to keep the lights on at the courthouse there as Trump comes in and out each day, and it's only helping the Trump campaign. Isn't that an amazing feature of this? Now, it shouldn't have to take that, but that's what it is. And all these lefty networks, they're carrying Trump's remarks and focused in on what he's up to because they think that this was going to be the big way to take him down, and instead it's only giving him more advantages as a political matter. Now, the other piece of this, as Ned Ryun raised, is even though it is helping Trump, and I'm getting some schadenfreude out of that, I think that's fun that it is helping him. And even though the left was not trying to do that at all, they were trying to rig the election and steal it from the voters. But here's the thing: it only diminishes once again our criminal justice system. People will take opinions away from this that this is rigged. This is not designed to blindly met out justice. And instead, it is rigged to reach political conclusions. So you're destroying faith to the extent that it exists anymore in the criminal justice system. And that'll take a long, long time to rebuild, assuming it can be rebuilt. The president brought with him today, or at least among the people who accompanied him, you may have heard U.S. senators were there. J.D. Vance, outside of the courthouse today, had this to say about Michael Cohen testifying.
What I've witnessed so far in my couple hours in there. First of all, Michael Cohen is the prosecution's star witness. This guy is a convicted felon who admitted in his testimony that he secretly recorded his former employer, that he only did it once, allegedly, and that this was supposed to help Donald Trump. Does any reasonable, sensible person believe anything that Michael Cohen says? I don't think that they should, and I actually think that his testimony is going to hurt with any reasonable juror, and hopefully we have a few of those. I want to say two other things here very quickly. Number one, the thing that the president is prevented from saying, which is a disgrace, is that every single person involved in this prosecution is practically a Democratic political operative. The judge inside, his daughter, is making millions of dollars running against Donald Trump, raising money for Donald Trump's political opponents. The number three person...
And the judge is also a Biden donor.
...to the Department of Justice. Biden's Department of Justice left to become a local prosecutor to go after Donald Trump. And, of course, there's Alvin Bragg, a Soros-funded prosecutor who promised to go after Donald Trump and now is doing exactly that.
Yeah. No question. No question. And there's a bunch of people on that team, including, I believe, the prosecutor who was questioning Michael Cohen today, or Susan something. She's also a Democrat political hack, and there she is trying to make it seem like Michael Cohen's testimony is highly credible. They're going to drag that testimony into a day two tomorrow, and one would hope and assume that the defense would then begin cross-examining Michael Cohen perhaps as early as tomorrow, we'll see. Here's more from Senator Vance.
Now, look, whether you love Donald Trump, whether you like Donald Trump, or whether you're a Democrat or don't care about politics, what's going on inside that courtroom is a threat to American democracy, ladies and gentlemen. We cannot have a country where you get to prosecute your political opponents instead of persuading voters. Joe Biden's entire strategy is to...
Why aren't more senators sounding like this? Why is it just J.D. Vance? I realize, I mean, there are senators who are saying some version of this, but they should all be outside of that courthouse declaring this very thing, that the republic itself is being threatened by this. These cartoonish claims, this projection by Joe Biden that somehow it's Republicans who are the real threat to democracy. It's such nonsense. Every one of these Republican officials should be leaning forward. They should be in an attack posture right now over what's happening to their country.
Started to distract from inflation at home and war overseas with this sham trial. I just want to live in a reasonable country where we try to persuade voters in our politics. We don't try to throw our political opponents in jail. So this is a disgrace, and I wanted to be here to show some support for my friend.
Also, Coach Tuberville, Senator Tommy Tuberville there today outside that courthouse.
First of all, I'm disappointed in the courtroom. I'm hearing Mr. Trump, Mr. Trump. He is former President Trump. Give him some respect. I mean, that's what that place is in there. It's no respect. Here's what I'm seeing, too. It is depressing. That courtroom is depressing. This is New York City, the icon of our country, and we got a courtroom that's the most depressing thing I've ever been in. Mental anguish is trying to be pushed on.
You know, he's not the first person to say this. I've heard a number of people say that courtroom is soul-sucking. Like I think it's something about the architecture and the air conditioning and the misery and it looks like some sort of Matrix waiting room. I don't know what it is, but everybody's complaining about it. You had President Trump saying that they got the air conditioning shockingly cold in the building. He says he's freezing every day he's in that courtroom. There's some kind of torture in there. Judge Jeanine Pirro was talking about how awful that place is. And Senator Tommy Tuberville, you just heard him say it too. It's just depressing, he said. Mental anguish producing.
Icon of our country, and we got a courtroom that's the most depressing thing I've ever been in. Mental anguish is trying to be pushed on Republican candidate for the President of the United States this year. That's all this is. He's been here a month. I am disappointed in looking at the supposedly American citizens in that courtroom.
Supposedly.
That the DA comes in and he acts like it is his Super Bowl. And I guess it is, to be noticed. But that's what's happening in this country. The Republican candidate for President of the United States is going through mental anguish in a courtroom that's very depressing. Very depressing.
Very depressing. Your calls in just a moment. They're coming in. All right, let's go to the phones. I've got David calling in from Fairfax, line 4. David, good afternoon. You're on the Vince Coglianese Show.
Hey, thanks. All these prosecutions, all three of them, Fannie, Smith, Bragg, were all coordinated by the White House. So the White House has control, and I think that the best thing Joe Biden could do to help himself would be to make 3 phone calls and tell these people to drop it and knock it off. And then the 4th phone call would be to the Commission on Presidential Debates and say, let's schedule a debate with Donald Trump 2 weeks from now, and let's fight over the issues and not this crap. Biden could shut this down, but he won't.
You're totally right. It's within his control. In fact, that would be a sign of decency if he were to do that. He'd say, "Hey,
and
look."
I think it would gain. I think it would gain him some support and act like decorum. Hello, can we have some decorum?
Yeah. Well, it ought also be the kind of thing where you say, actually, no, this should not be a rigged deal. We should let the voters decide who the best man is, and may that man win. But he is not that person. He's a bad person, David. His entire political career has given us the answer to this question, and unfortunately, he's not going to be on the side of decency.
No, and I'm ashamed for my country because I love it. Yeah. But he could do this. Biden could do this, and I think he would boost his standing with some people, maybe some independents, but I don't think he will. But he could. He could shut this down with 3 phone calls.
Yeah, well, and unfortunately, instead, they're running it rather than shutting it down. David, it's an excellent point. Thank you. And a reminder that he has agency here. No matter how personally involved he is in this entire scheme, David's exactly right. Biden could shut this whole thing down in a second, and yet he doesn't. He doesn't. And it's just the latest knock on his character we've seen, isn't it? As Ashley Biden just confirmed that the diary, just in case you need for the 6 millionth confirmation on that subject, her diary was completely real. The one where she said that she showered with her father as a young girl, and it distorted her for the rest of her life. The media has acted like, who knows? That sounds like a conspiracy. She confirmed it. Snopes just changed their rating from unproven to true on the basis of the Ashley Biden confirmation. Coming up, we're going to have Cheryl Chumley join us from the Washington Times. We talked to her about Joe Biden's decision to abandon Israel at a critical moment. And Charisse Trump is here as well in this next hour as we take a close look at a major university system banishing DEI and funding the police. Is it the beginning of something bigger?